John McFarlane, Boating New Zealand. We're here today to review the Mary Frances, a slender 12.9 metre powerboat. Six years ago, Simon Justice sat in his classic timber launch wondering whether owning it was worth the trouble. The elderly Ford engine had spewed oil from every orifice while seawater sloshed through the bilges from the leaking stern gland. Fading, peeling paint, dodgy wiring and unreliable systems were crying out for work. A lot of work. Something much better was required. A depressed Justice considered his options. Another second-hand boat didn't appeal, and Justice decided he'd be better off building a new one. His needs were simple: a boat to go fishing and diving that could be handled alone, take two others if required, and most importantly, one that was fuel efficient and had an easy motion. And lastly, it shouldn't cost more than $100,000. Justice spent many months researching options through Google, eventually discovering American-based Mark V design for an 11-metre hard-chine plywood commuter launch. This design was inspired by a 1920s-style Chesapeake Bay powerboat featuring a slender, easily driven hull with a beam-to-length ratio of 4.5 to 1. Justice brought the plans, which cost a princely $150, and built a model. This was smart, as he could test a few modifications on the model before committing to the full-sized boat. Justice increased freeboard, length and headroom while modernising the cabin styling and windows. Justice only had a single garage to build his boat, so he built it in 3 sections, split athwartships. The first section was the bow back to the steering bulkhead, while the second was the transom forward to the aft main cabin bulkhead. With these 2 sections completed, Justice set them out square, level and true, then built the centre main cabin section to join them. While this sounds a trifle dodgy, there's no trace of the joins either inside or out, and as the joints are well staggered, there's no loss of structural strength. There are no frames per se, just the bulkheads, which are irregularly located to suit the accommodation. The whole bottom is 2 skins of Meranti plywood, 6 and 12mm, with a single skin of 12mm plywood for the top sides. An external box section gunnel increases deck width for better footing and adds considerable strength to the gunnel. The complete hull was heavily glassed with a layer of 780-ounce triaxial cloth. It was like trying to wet out a bath mat, laughed Justice. Justice added 1.8 metres to the stern to support a bigger engine, taking the overall length to 12.9 metres and the beam to length ratio to 4.7 to 1. However, the engine remains in the same position as designed. It's in a tunnel, built in strip plank plywood, glassed on both sides. A removable box covers the engine with removable panels, one for the powerhead, the other for the prop, for routine access. The paint is all 2-pack hempel applied with a roller and a brush. He named her Mary Frances in honour of his late mother, but sadly his father John died before launching and didn't get to see the final result. Going aboard Mary Frances, a substantial engine box dominates the cockpit. However, there is still enough room aft and at the sides for fishing for up to 4 people, whilst the steps-through transom and wide boarding platform have been designed specifically for Justice's passion for diving. There are lockers beneath the floor beside the engine box for fuel tanks, LPG bottles and extra fuel. The central cabin with the galley opposite is surprisingly spacious and lets one recline and see out the side windows comfortably. The taller than average Justice built the main cabin with 2.2 metres of headroom. The helmsman has the best seat in the house and the floor is raised here for comfort. Opposite is a heads compartment with sitting headroom only. It's a snug but workable space and even has a shower. There's another shower in the cockpit which is handy for divers. Forward of this section, under the raised foredeck, is a 2-berth cabin with a hatch right forward to access the foredeck. This has an open cockpit, similar to some of the late John Spencer's designs. Besides the solar panels, the cabin top houses a 70-litre water tank, capped with black aluminium paint. This warms the shower water, an excellent feature for divers. The black powder-coated aluminium handrails are a nice touch. Mary Frances was moored against the Wetty Boating Club wharf, bow on to an outgoing tide and the southwest breeze. Getting off wasn't difficult, but the need for a bow thruster was immediately apparent. Long, narrow boats much prefer to travel in a straight line, and we needed most of the distance between the wharf and the moored boats to make our turn. No big deal, one soon learns to adapt. The Suzuki 140 is a 4-cylinder 4-stroke with a 16-valve head. It's a torquey unit and very quiet under 3000 RPM. The engine's 2.59:1 gearing allows it to swing a big propeller, well suited to this hull type. Because the engine can be raised entirely out of the water, growth and corrosion when moored are virtually non-existent, more so as he flushes the engine with fresh water after every use. Additionally, with the engine raised, the launch can float in 550 millimetres of water, opening up a raft of potential anchorages denied to boats with inboard engines and underhull rudders. Travelling out to open water at 1500 RPM gave us 7.2 knots over the ground, with the engine burning around 10 litres per hour or 1.2 litres per nautical mile. Once out into open waters, we upped the engine to 5000 RPM, which gave us 15.8 knots, 38 litres per hour and 2.4 litres per nautical mile respectively. Apart from the bow climbing a few degrees and the increased engine noise, the transition between displacement and planing speeds was seamless. Shortly after launching, Justice and Brett's Marine tested 5 different propellers, the chosen one having the best balance between efficiency and speed. We began our test with a romp downwind at 14 knots, with Mary Frances sitting on the aft part of her hull and the bow out of the water. Provided the power was kept on, the long narrow hull tracked well without the suspicion of a broach. The hydraulic steering was well weighted and the boat felt very controllable. Turning around and bunting back upwind into a 25-knot breeze at 14 knots felt equally sure-footed, but thanks to the vertical topsides there was now a solid stream of water fire-hosing back over the cabin. Buttoning back to suit the conditions to a more realistic speed of 8 to 9 knots was drier, more comfortable and seaman-like. This mightn't seem particularly fast to people used to deep V powerboats, but 9 knots dead to windward into a 25-knot breeze is more than attractive to a yachty. Top marks to the builder, Mary Frances felt solid punching into the breeze with no creaking, groaning or thumping. Mary Frances feels at her best going straight downwind or straight upwind. Beam on into the half-metre chop, she had a short, sharp roll, an inevitable function of her narrow beam. However, there was none of that ponderous, rhythmic rolling that some round-bilged displacement boats can exhibit. Importantly, on such a narrow hull, Justice wisely kept the fuel, water and batteries low in the boat, which aids ultimate stability. Unquestionably, Mary Frances is the antithesis of most new GRP production boats. However, she's based on a proven, time-honoured concept going back over 100 years, which is equally valid today. Long, narrow powerboats gain performance through low resistance and generally offer better fuel efficiency. Unfortunately, the widespread introduction of marinas worldwide over the past 50 years has driven powerboat design in the opposite direction. At some point, the cost and availability of fossil fuels might force a rethink of this approach. From a more local perspective, Mary Frances is living proof that an amateur builder, working by himself in a 6-metre garage, sticking to proven concepts and with careful thought, can create a professional, well-sorted boat that does precisely what it's supposed to do. Mary Frances, such a cool boat. Simon Justice, you should feel very proud.
John Ecclestone from Boating New Zealand. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of these videos, please subscribe to our channel.